specific question here. And just to give you a little reference, I'm a retired military officer. At 18, I rose my hand to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And at that time, well, I still am. I am still a Republican. I am, bless his heart, a Simpson Republican that believes in working together across the aisle. And my question, having looked at Musk's Doge, whatever website, you are a lawyer. Where is this fraud? Who, what company, what organization, what personnel
I'll just start reading some of it.
Are we going after?
I'll just start reading some of it. I'll just start reading it right now if you'd like me to. I'll just focus on USAID spending right here.
I didn't say spending, I said actual fraud.
This is what it is. This is the spending associated with the fraud. This is the fraud. Spending is the fraud.
No.
Yeah, it is.
Spending you don't like.
Yes, it is.
We go after specific companies or specific personnel that are committing fraud.
500,000. This is fraud.
No.
This is fraudulent spending.
No, it may be abusive spending, but it's not.
Well, and what I said.
Senator Murphy, my name is Patrick Cummings. I live here in Stamford. I'm a military veteran. I served in the Air Force from 2009 to 2013. The actions by the Trump regime and Elon Musk have disproportionately affected and will continue to affect veterans. As we know, they make up a third of the federal workforce, and they're losing jobs just every single day. Plans to cut, I think, 80,000 jobs at the VA by August. The suicide hotline employees were indiscriminately fired for God knows why. And this is going to certainly continue to affect veterans going forward. It's only going to get worse, I imagine. And I just wanted to state that healthcare and service-connected disability compensation, these are not entitlements. These are benefits which we earn through our honorable military service and injuries sustained in the line of duty. And the VHA delivers health care for those injuries and diseases that disproportionately affect veterans.
So let me just say what you said again in case people didn't hear it. Veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce. They are 5% of the private sector workforce. They are 30% of the federal workforce. And when you fire everybody who is a probationary employee, you are predominantly firing veterans. You are firing young veterans, veterans who just came out of the service, who transferred to go do another job in the federal government because they want to keep serving. And just because they are a young veteran, they have all of a sudden been laid off. And so this mass firing, which, by the way, has been stopped for the time being by the courts, has a disproportionate impact on veterans. The very people that we should be lifting up and giving preference for federal jobs are getting disproportionately fired by this policy.
Just wanted to see what your plan is to address the issue with the administration talking about classified military operations and signal. And will you demand the immediate resignation of Pete Hegseth? Would demand the immediate resignation of Pete Hegseth, Michael Waltz, and the rest of the group chat.
So let me just address, no, I will not demand their resignation. But I'll explain yourselves then. And actually, you should call all of So we're going to attend them and talk to them a little bit more. But talking about that issue, one thing that I want to share with you, I think it is actually very bad, and there is
Pundits and politicians across America today are digesting the potential impact of yesterday's rallies, with protesters in all 50 states gathering to push back against President Trump and Elon Musk. Among the demonstrators was Representative Al Green, who was censured for protesting Trump during his joint address to Congress. Green announced he will be filing articles of impeachment against the president in the next 30 days.
For every Goliath, there is a David. I'm bringing articles of impeachment. I'm coming for you, Mr. President. This David is coming for you. You don't deserve the office you hold. You can't be entrusted with liberty and justice for all. You can't be entrusted with government of the people, by the people, for the people. I'm coming for you.
Joining us now, Michigan Representative Hillary Skolton. She's on the House Transportation Committee and the Small Business Committee. All right, Congresswoman, your response to the protests that we saw over the weekend, there's getting a lot of hype, but is that realistic? Is it enough?
We are hearing the exact same thing that we saw yesterday across our district at town halls. In Michigan, there were 50 protests yesterday across the state. Tens of thousands of people came out to make their voices heard because they are so upset by what is happening in our country. My district, deeply conservative. I am the first Democrat in a century to hold this seat. This was once Gerald Ford's seat in Congress. And when we're holding our town halls, I'm hearing people come out and they're saying, listen, I'm a Republican. I even voted for Trump, but I didn't vote for this.
I also want to ask you what you're hearing from constituents about tariffs, especially given Michigan, car manufacturing. The USMCA was set up, this Mexico-Canada trade deal, to kind of facilitate this, and there's an exception for some of those productions. But are constituents worried about other things, furniture, food, all of the above?
They're deeply concerned. We're hearing from our ag sector. We make furniture in Grand Rapids, and as well as our defense contracting space as well. We're concerned that the American military is actually going to have to be paying more for their, our fighter jets that we're creating.
It's that you might go into manufacturing.
You can't even imagine the amount of goods and services that we import from various locations that are now being taxed at a blanket tariff. We don't have to do it this way. This is the reality under Trump. Chaos is the point. He's sowing division. California is talking about how they want to go their own way and carve out their own tariffs. We are the United States of America. We need to stand firm, negotiate the best tariff deals that we can, and not do it in a way that is going to rocket the American economy. $6 trillion worth of savings lost in the stock market. I've got close to 70 families coming out to Washington, D.C. this week for spring break. Many of them saving thousands of dollars to take this once-in-a-lifetime trip for many of them. And they're going to be hit smack dab with surcharges, at every single restaurant they go to because prices are rising and the dollars they save for this trip are not going to go as far.
And speaking of families, I want to ask you about what happened in the House last week when your Republican colleague Anna Paulina Luna worked to force a vote to allow proxy voting in the House for new parents. Speaker Mike Johnson tried to stop the measure from coming up for a vote, but actually 8 Republicans defied him. Does it show that, in response to Johnson, he sent everybody home? So is that an effective way to run the chamber? And does it start to show potentially cracks in the GOP unity?
It absolutely does. This was nothing short of a temper tantrum from Mike Johnson. You see him not getting his way. The vast majority of the Congress, the House of Representatives, spoke through this proxy voting, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats. They said, we want this. Mike Johnson said,
I actually saw a lot of Republicans saying we want women to have children. We need to make it easier for them to do all of the above.
This from the party of family values, supposedly, right? And yet Mike Johnson is willing to shut down Congress, stop the people's business, right, and send us home because he doesn't want this to go forward. When over 50% said, We do. We had the votes to get it passed. He shut it down. He sent us home. We've got work to do. We've got a budget to get done. We have a farm bill to pass. We've got, this chaos around tariffs. And yet he's willing to send us home to cut that work short because he doesn't want to let new moms be with their infant children after they.
This is my son, Joseph Peters, who has autism and lives in his own apartment with his aide in Hackensack for 7 years.
All right.
Medicaid is hard. That's my job, to do the food stamps, the rental voucher, SSI, DDD, and to do the paperwork and get it done. But it works. For 7 years, he lives independently with supports in his community. A 10% cut would impact this life and all the other ones that are going to need it that are coming down the road, and families like mine. And it's no way to live, but I will do everything in my power and anything I can to support you and anybody that can make this not happen.
I just want to say I love my helpers, for one thing. I love my apartment. And just please, please, for the love of God, don't cut Medicaid.
Even a 5% cut, 10% cut, that would mean millions of people in their states would lose Medicaid, and millions of families. That's how much of a razor edge these resources are. So what she is saying, everything she is saying is true. But Joseph, what you just did in front of this room of 1,000 people, that courage, we all need your courage. We all need your strength. We all need your inspiration. We all need to stand like you stood, and you are one of the best hugs I've gotten this entire year, so thank you. Thank you.
The protests aren't stopping, and honestly, these town halls, especially the Republican ones, they're just going to keep turning into disasters. Let's be real. Every Republican town hall is basically a Trump town hall now. The GOP has become a party where Trump defines the tone, and that's why many Republicans have either stopped holding town halls or never started. They know how messy and hostile these events can get. But here's what's interesting. While Republican lawmakers are hiding, it's the Democrats, yes, even in red areas, who are stepping up and doing town halls. People like AOC and Bernie Sanders have gone across the country. Sure, they've been in blue cities, but they've also shown up in red states, in conservative districts, to actually talk to people. Now, are these Democratic town halls all smooth and easy? Not at all. In fact, Democrats are getting real, direct criticism too, and that's fair. A lot of working class folks, maybe even some of you watching or listening, are tired of the softer approach from establishment Democrats like Chuck Schumer. What people want is fighters. They want more Cory Bookers, more AOCs, more Jasmine Crockett's, more Bernies, people who aren't afraid to stand up and speak out. That's what makes these town halls more successful. People may not agree on every issue, but they respect the fight, the courage. And ironically, for many working class Republican voters, the only way they feel heard is by going to a Democrat's town hall, not their own parties. Because here's the truth. Whatever flaws Democrats may have, and I've called them out before for not being progressive or aggressive enough, most Democratic lawmakers still believe they represent everyone in their district, even the people who didn't vote for them. Republicans, increasingly, they don't even pretend to believe that. They've become cultish, exclusive, and authoritarian. And that's why this moment matters. Because if you want to be heard, if you want real talk, if you want someone to show up, the fighters are showing up. And more often than not, they're wearing blue.